The word sustainability drives me crazy. There, I said it. Okay, let's just say that practicality, a lot of choices that are practical happen to be good for the environment. So, it takes less energy to bike than to drive. It makes a little bit more sense to live close to where we work. But most of us are going to make trade-offs in deciding on where we live and how to travel. At some point, a car or a ridiculously expensive Vancouver condo might make sense to us. Some of us are going to choose to continue to rent and live in a central location, and others are going to move further out so they can finally have their own garden and grow their tomatoes. I'm a 37-year-old renter living in the most expensive housing market in the country, so let's just say I'm a housing skeptic. I'm not so sure that home ownership or car ownership ought to be our measures of success. We don't live in Pleasantville or Leave It to Beaver. Most households in Canada now, the growing household types, are actually single parent and single person and couples without children. So for these household types, a lot of the time, home ownership isn't very practical. Consider that the majority of population growth in our cities is due to immigration, and immigrants are much more likely to rent or to take transit. In my study of Filipino immigrants in Toronto, I found that people made very practical housing and transportation choices. And because they were practical, some of these choices happen to be good for the environment. So Filipinos are a rapidly growing group in Canada, the most quickly growing group, in fact, of all immigrants. When I interviewed Filipino immigrants in Toronto, I found that when they lived in the Philippines, a lot of them rented and took transit. When they settled in Toronto, they made their choices depending on their household size, the location of their workplace, and access to transit. Some people told me they bought the big house in the suburbs, but they gave it up because they hated commuting over 2 hours to work. Other people told me they kept on taking transit even though they had a car at home. And other people told me that even after, when they changed jobs or when they retired, they actually went back to using transit. So people made their housing and transportation choices in a way that was practical depending on their particular situation. And this made them very resilient to changes. Changes like getting divorced, changing jobs, or even having new recently arrived relatives come and stay with them when they first came to Canada. So most researchers would say that people only rent or they only take transit when they're poor. Shouldn't we be celebrating the fact that 40% of Filipino immigrants are choosing to take transit to work? That's double the rate of non-immigrants in Toronto. And isn't it great that they choose the housing type that best suits their needs instead of sacrificing everything for that big house in the suburbs? So maybe we should forget the American dream of home ownership and car ownership. Maybe resilient and practical choices are the new Canadian dream.